This is Justina Bandol, and today it is my pleasure to talk about a book recently published by Vara Publishing House, Vara, lupilor, and I will be talking about it with the author of the book, Mr. Hans Rosenfeldt. Hello, Mr. Rosenfeldt.
Hello.
Welcome, and I'm very happy you're here with us.
I'm happy to. Thank you for having me.
I will start directly by saying that it is and it isn't your first novel, right? It is the first novel you wrote by yourself,
yes.
But it's not the first novel you authored, sort of. You wrote another series of novels with someone else?
Yes, I'm writing another crime novel series together with Michael Hjort, my colleague and friend.
Okay, and that's not finished yet.
We have published 7 of them in Sweden. And then I did my own book, and now we are just finishing the 8th one. It's due out in Sweden in August.
Okay, so you are writing by yourself, you're writing with someone else. You're also mostly, as far as I saw, a screenwriter, or you used to be mostly a screenwriter for a while.
I'd say I still am probably mostly a screenwriter.
Okay.
I do 3 shows now. I mix it up. When I don't do screenwriting, I do novels. When I don't do novels, I do screenwriting. Most of the time I do them at the same time, which sometimes is a bit...
That was my first... I discovered you through this book. It's basically the first of your books that I read. And I also watched, in order to prepare and understand you more as an author, I also watched 2 of your the movies that you wrote the script for, which is the first series in The Bridge, and then in a few episodes in Mozzarella.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how you juggle these 2 aspects of your life as a screenwriter, as an author of books. And what is the difference? And do you plan to write more and perhaps turn towards authoring books?
The process, the story, the invention of the story, and the kind of pacing of the story, and the build of the characters, all of that is pretty much the same whether you do scripts or whether you do books. You have to map out the story. I am not one of those writers that starts and then just kind of figure out where it takes me. I have the whole story mapped out before I start writing. So and I do that with scripts as well. And the big difference then is actually the writing, because the script is just a blueprint. The script is some stage directions and dialogue. And then the rest is filled in by directors and actors and scenographers and set designers and photographers. So you really don't have to do everything in a script. While you have to do everything in a book, you have to set the environment, the locations. You have to describe the characters. You have to make their inner voices and all of that. So it's just, we used to say, Michael and I, that a book is so many words. A script is really thin, but a book it takes time to write a book.
Do you enjoy it more?
I think I tend to like what I do at the moment. I tend to kind of long for the things that I don't do. So when I write a book, as I'm doing now, I'm thinking, it would be nice to write a script again. Mm-hmm. And then when I do in I'm in the script process and I work with directors and producers and actors, and I think, oh, it would be nice to just be me alone writing a book again. So I tend to like what I'm not doing at the moment. So I probably do both for a while, a couple more years.
But you did write, so what was this experience of writing by yourself, solitary somehow, as opposed to writing together with someone else? And what does that mean to write a novel, to co-author a novel?
It was that one, the Wolf Summer or Cry Wolf, was really difficult for me because I've been used to work with Michael for so long. We've done 7 novels together. And the thing is not the writing in itself, I can do that, but the fact that I had no one to call when I got stuck or when I said, oh, this is probably not the best way to do this. There must be a better way to do this. And every other time I've been able to call Michael and say, hey, I don't think this is the way we should go. What do? We discuss it and we come up with something better and we do that. Here I had no one. No one knew the story. No one knew the characters. I had absolutely no one. So every time I got stuck, I had to solve it myself. And that was a new experience for me because screenwriting is also very much a team effort. You're never alone on a screen. On a screenwriting, it's, as I said, there's actors, directors, producers. There's a lot of people that knows the story just as well as you, and you can talk to them and you discuss it and you elevate it. And here it was just me, and that was kind of a shock. It was the first time in many, many years I did something completely on my own, and I wasn't really up to it at the beginning.
Okay, but you do plan to continue the series so far?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do have plans. I have started on the second novel in the series, but we'll see. There's some other problems with that I won't go into at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, you started saying something about how you map the plot, the characters, and I was wondering, since this is a rather complex plot, it has various threads, it has lots of characters, and most of them are very real, very alive. So we expect things to happen to them, and they do happen. So you have to weave all these threads. How do you proceed, and how do you use, I don't know, some kind of mental mind maps, or how do you create and develop the plot and all these different characters?
It's not a mental, it's a very physical mind map. It's Post-it notes on a wall, so you basically.
Like those detectives in the...
Yeah, it's like that. It's a puzzle.
Photos,
Yeah, it is. The first book is always a little bit different because then you have to kind of set the characters. No one knows them, so you have to introduce them to an audience or to readers. So that's the first time. It's a little bit different. But what I usually do, and what we usually do, is that we come up with a plot, basically. What's this book is about, and then we outline the twists and turns and see that this is probably a book. And then we take each character and we say, where do they start? Where do we want them to end? So we kind of set up the start and the beginning and the end, and then you kind of fill in the gaps in the story, like, oh, here is a good place for her to think about this. Here is a good place for her to know about that. Here is a good place for her. And then you kind of build the characters around the plot, I do at least, to see where they kind of fit. And usually when it comes, Marcella was one, our books are one, we usually try to get them in a way personally involved in the case. So you also try to see, where can we do that? Where can this kind of grab our main protagonist the deepest? So it's a puzzle, and it takes a while. I mean, we usually storyline outboard a book or a show for for weeks, months even, before we start actually writing it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this is, I would say, a rather, it fits very well, I think, into this definition of the Nordic noir with, very socially conscious, first of all, psychological, but it also has, and I was wondering while reading it, it has this very strong sense of place. And I was also struck by the fact that it deals with the border again, just like in the bridge,
Yeah.
It's this kind of dual, I don't know if it's ambiguous, but bilingual, place where, so just like in the bridge, you have Sweden and Denmark there, and there's this border between two cities. Here it's the border between, it happens to be the border between two towns, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about this sense of place? Because the town is really, the Haparanda is really a character in the book. And I think in the bridge it's the same, right? You have all those images, all those frames of the city interspersed with the plot all the time. There's a lot of reason why this took place in Haparanda. First of all, it's when we write our books, Michael and I, we decided very early on to not have a specific city or a specific town. We decided to move around in different cities. So we made a homicide unit that moves around in Sweden solving crimes. So then when I was going to write on my own, I wanted to distance myself as much as I could from our books to make them my books. So then I said, okay, so I will have a city, I will have a location. And then 10 years ago, when the bridge was starting, I was up in Haparanda because they wanted to know if we could do something familiar with the Finnish border. And I remembered that town, and I thought it is a very, very good setting for a crime novel. It's not very well known. I'd say a lot of Swedes will struggle to put it out on a map. They don't. It's not making a lot of noise. So as I went up there and I fell in love with it, and I thought, yeah, this is going to be it. And then, of course, I knew that, this is going to be another border story. So they will say, I'm going to be doing the bridge again, but up north, and being a little bit of a one-trick pony. So I played it down a bit, I'd say, the kind of border thing. It is there because the border goes straight through the city, but I didn't really play so much on Finnish-Swedish as I did in the bridge with Danish-Swedish. And then I decided to, because it is Haparanda and it's not that well known, I thought you can do research on a town or a city and then you try to put it in. But usually if you do research like wars and kings and what has happened there, and you try to put it in the plot, or you try to have a character thinking about it, it feels a little bit like, oh, he did his research. But it's not really something that people go around and think of every day, like, oh, here was when Lenin was here. You don't really think about it. So then I decided, and I think I stole it from an Ed McBain novel, to let the city have her own voice, to make it a character in the book so that she could think about the past. She's almost like a Greek choir in the old Greek dramas. They see everything, they know everything, but they can't really act and they can't intervene. And then they just have to see how life rolls out. And they know it all, but they can't do anything. That's the kind of image I wanted to create of a sentient being with a lot of history but never able to interact. So that's why she got her own chapters in this book. And how did you said you went there, you loved the place, but what did it, because you have so many, spots in the city. You have roads and forests and the mines, the lakes and so on around the city. what did you do? Did you go everywhere? In all these little places you described, did you talk to people? Did you go to buildings or inside the building?
I was there quite a lot for being me, because when Michael and I write, we never go to the places that we actually write about. We only use our computers. We use Google Maps. We use Street View. We use Wikipedia. We never really go there. So this was I was there for quite some time. I spent a couple of weeks there before starting writing, and I didn't visit all of the places. I never saw the mine holes that is an important plot point. But I've seen most of the houses. I've been to most of the places. There's a very, very action-packed sequence in the book where one of the characters is a prisoner and then she's breaking free. Mm-hmm. That is in a real house. That is, I've seen that house, so I pictured that in my head when I wrote that. So it's a mix, but it's more actually being there this time than it used to be. But some of it is just Googling.
Mm-hmm. Because it did sound very realistic and very together with this the voice of the city. It sounded like you were present there. You knew every nook of the.
Well, I don't. I think I spent a little bit. I spent too little time there to know that. But also, to be fair, it's not that big a city. You walk through it quite quickly. Yeah, I don't say you get to know it, but you can get a visual overlook pretty quick.
And it does seem to have an interesting history.
I'm sorry?
It seems to have an interesting history, indeed.
It has a really interesting history. I mean, during the wars, it was massive. Everything happened in Haparanda because it was the only railway from east to west, and throughout the borders. And it was huge. For a couple of years, Haparanda had the world's biggest post station with 300,000 parcels and letters a day.
I think I saw a photo on the net, on the internet.
Yeah, postman,
sorting.
Yeah, they didn't want it all into the city, so they stopped a couple of miles outside because they didn't want to put railroad all the way in if they were captured. So they built a little, and it was like Klondike, a little town grew up around the post station because there were so many people there. So there were banks and there were restaurants and there were bars and there was it was like a gold mining feeling in Haparanda during that was the First World War. So it is a very, very historically interesting place.
And then you say that nowadays it can enter the headlines only when something really evil happens, and.
Yeah, national headlines. It was a long time since Haparanda made national headlines. It's a sleepy. I'd say it's a sleepy northern town at the moment. It's lost. It's not a metropolitan city anymore, which it was once.
All right. Now I'd like to ask you a question about the characters.
Yeah.
In fact, about female characters. And my sense is that from what I've seen and read by you is that your female characters are somehow the strongest. Although they are fragile and they have their inner demons, but I have this feeling that they somehow fight. They fight more than men. Is that true, or how do you approach male characters differently?
My approach has never really been to make them or to make them look like they struggle more. I have not gone for the female police officer having to fight male officers or male superiors because she's a female. It's done quite a lot. And at least in Sweden, I still think that exists, of course, in most workplaces. It's not really a story that I'm that interested in telling. So I just go for that they are really strong female characters. And then I think also it's a bit in the viewer and the reader whether or not you read them as they have to fight a little bit more. In this book with Hannah, because both of my the biggest characters that I created, which is Saga Norén in The Bridge and Marcella in Marcella, they both had, Saga had some kind of diagnosis on the autistic spectrum, even though we never diagnosed her. Marcella had clearly demons from the past. She was clearly dealing with mental health issues. And so I wanted to do Hannah not another kind of, I wouldn't say flawed, because they weren't. Saga was definitely not flawed, but not a character with any kind of diagnosis for Hannah. So then I just created I just created my wife, middle-aged woman, or even maybe older. I don't know where middle age is anymore, but a 50-plus woman going through menopause, struggling a little bit with her relationships. But I really didn't want to do her making her, struggling at work. She has only male colleagues. And I know when we sold the TV rights for this, there was an American company involved. And they said straight away, oh, we should make more about her being the only woman and that she has to fight twice as hard. And it's like, it's not really the case. She's a 50-plus-year-old woman working in her hometown. She doesn't really have to, and it doesn't really work like that. Maybe in a bigger city, but definitely not in Haparanda, because they know her. Everybody knows each other. They just wouldn't work to have her surrounded by misogynists. So I said that's not going to happen, and they did it so well, in Helen Mirren's Prime Suspect back in the 90s, and it's been done since then all the time. So I wasn't really interested in that. But I mean, they do struggle, but I don't think they struggle that much. Hopefully they don't struggle that much on the professional. They always struggle personally, because that's the drama of it. But even if they will be the male characters, we have a male protagonist in our books, Michael and I, he's struggling a lot. So because that's drama, that's content people, happy people are boring. So they have to have something.
Well, actually, that was my next question related to characters, because your style, I mean, it's obvious you're sort of a master of your craft. So your style is very efficient and precise, and you develop the plot very fluently and gradually, and you have a very strong final. I got that feeling from the movies as well as from the book, which is actually never truly good. The final, the final, yeah. But just after watching and reading, what is left with me mostly is not so much the crime plot, as it is the characters and their struggles and their emotions, and this the whole psychological trip that you take them through, and this inner development that happens with them, and actually I felt that the final, the end of the book is it somehow brings them to an existential crisis in a way. So did you mean it to be like that? I mean, did you I had the same feeling from both movies, from the movie series, that I'm left mostly. I don't know if that's again my own perception of it. I'm left basically with the people in the plot, not so much.
I'm sorry.
With the people, I'm left with the people in the plot.
Yeah.
Not so much with the plot.
No. But that's the thing. That's why I think it's the same with books and screenwriting. Yeah. You come to the series or the book. The book, when you start reading it, you're intrigued by the plot, hopefully. And the plot is the motor that takes you through the book. And you want to see who did it, what's the reason, will they catch him? And that's the book. But then the thing that makes you want another book in the series or another series season 2 or season 3, that's always the characters. Nobody wanted the bridge to see, oh, I wonder what kind of plot they figured out. Everybody wanted series 2 because they loved Saga and Martin. And it's the same with my and Michael's book. Nobody really cares about where we set it and who is the first victim. They want to meet the team and they want to meet our protagonist, Sebastian Bergman. That's why you wanted to have books 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. That's why detective stories are so successful with to make series out of. It's not because of the plot. It's always because of the characters. They are the one you get to know. They are the one you root for. They are the one you want to see. Oh, I wonder what happens to them next. You don't really care about, what gruesome murder will there be in this show? It's so I say the plot is important for the book or for those 8 or 6 episodes or whatever you do. The characters, they are important to have a long life of the story. And that's all down to characters.
Yeah, and I also felt that, your characters are not that kind of a, super powered, whatever, smart detective somehow out of this world, somewhere far away that we can't really touch. They really felt people just like us. And I had the feeling that in spite of, the bleak environment and the fact that the final is not really happy for the, it's not like the good triumph over the evil. So in spite of that, just the fact that the characters were so close to me, gave the book, I don't know, maybe it's too much to say, but some kind of optimistic feeling, some kind of connection, with.
Yeah, but I think sadness is a very, very good emotion to write about and to play out. I think that. Sorry, I didn't really got the question, but I have to say that when it comes to happy endings, it's not. You want to create characters that you can somehow identify with, even if you haven't had the same experiences as they have, because you hopefully haven't had the same experiences as they had. You want characters that you can identify with, so they can't really be the kind of superhero stories. I think, and this I might be corrected, but Americans, they do much more hero-villain. And the hero is all good, all capable, always right. And the villain is all bad. There's no redeeming features with him or her. They do this more hero-villain thing. In Scandinavia, we have a long legacy from the 60s to kind of create good heroes, but with flaws, that they are human people. Not everything they do is right. Sometimes they do quite the opposite, but they're still the heroes of our story. And the bad people are not just genetically evil. There is a reason for their behavior. You can understand. They might even have some redeeming qualities, but they still do bad things. I think the best, when it works as best, you can say, oh, I understand why he's doing this. I can't really forgive his actions, but I do understand why. And that I think is a very Scandinavian thing to do, to kind of get the, you're not born evil. You're not just plain a psychopath. There are reasons behind your behavior, just like
and we care about them.
Yeah, we do care about even the bad ones. They're not just mwahaha, laughing, but James Bond villains. They're persons. They're real humans. So I think, and when you do that, you kind of ground it a bit, so it makes more. It's easier to identify with the story in the all, and then yeah, I'm not a big fan of happy endings. I like sadness and a bit of mystery and misery at the end. Also because I always think, can we do another book? Can we do another show? Can we do another thing of this? You don't really want to end them on a high note. At least I don't.
Well, I enjoy that very much.
Melancholy is very good. Melancholy and sadness, I think, are good two emotions for crime writers.
Yeah, and they are associated with Scandinavian literature in general, I think.
Yeah, I think we're good at characters. We have it, since the 60s. That's 60 years now that we developed. Nobody really wants to see the kind of good versus bad or good versus evil story in Scandinavia. It isn't appealing to us. So if we want to make it in our own territory, we have to create the stories where you can understand both sides.
And you have this, little bits of social commentary all over the place as well.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think a lot of people and a lot of my colleagues, they kind of set out with a social commentary. They kind of set out, this is a book about, we have quite a big discussion around about gang violence, organized crime and gang violence. So this is a book about that. In the 90s, we had motorcycle gangs, we have immigration, we have racism. So they said, oh, this is a book about that. And then they build a story about a social or a newsworthy commentary. We don't do that. I think if you write a crime, because crime is usually, it's crime. What crimes you have in a country tells quite a lot about what time it is in the country and how the temperature is in the country. So when we set out to do things, we don't really go for a subject. We go for a good, solid crime plot. But since we do it in present time, you can't really avoid being a social commentary. Because every character is a result of the society that they live in. And if you want to write about them and you want to get to know them, you have to comment on the life and the society they live in. So we kind of bring in social commentary in our characters and in our stories, but we never set out to be a social commentary book. That's not our thing. And but you can't. I mean, if you don't have it, it won't. If you don't have it, you don't really know. Then the book could be written in 1970s or 1820s, or you need to ground it in the society that you live in, and then you get the social commentary for free, basically.
Well, actually, it's probably necessary for the psychological grounding of the characters as well.
It works really well for that, yeah.
All right. So I don't know. My last thought was, how is the series going to develop? What do you have for us in the future?
Well, I do have the Sebastian Bergman series, book 8. In Sweden it will be out in August. I have we have 20 more days of shooting on a television show on Astrid Lindgren's book Ronja the Robber's Daughter. I have turned that into 2 series. I have a series coming out on Paramount Plus in August called The Burning Girls. And I am currently writing, my 8th novel, and I'm going to start on a new English-spoken TV show in June, which is going to call The Chalk Man. So it's based on C.J. Tudor's novel. So I have a lot of fun things to do.
And how about the series?
Yeah, it's there. As I say, I can't really go into it, but it's in my head, and I started writing it, and then let's say we went into some legal problems. Okay. Let's stay there.
Okay. All right. Well,
so it might. I hope it will come out. I hope it will come out next year. It might not. It's not really up to me anymore.
Okay.
It's above my pay grade these days.
Because I think it's the second novel that was published in Romania, your second book, and the first one has appeared, I think it appeared about 10 years ago.
Oh, that was the Sebastian Bergman book then?
Yeah. It was a Sebastian Bergman.
That was 10 years ago. That
was just, the only book published for a while, and this is the second, and we're hoping this will continue.
Yeah. I hope it won't be another 10 years before I'm published again in Romania. I really hope so.
I hope too. I would really like to.
You know what? If it just gets solved, it will be out next year. The follow-up to Cry Wolf.
Yeah, but meanwhile, I can certainly recommend both the book and the series, the film series, to our readers, which are really excellent. I very much enjoyed The Bridge. I'm not sure it was shown in Romania on Netflix. But I managed to watch the first. Oh
yeah, because Marcella should be on, because Netflix has the worldwide rights to that. Yeah, it's only in UK. It's not on Netflix.
I personally like The Bridge more.
Two different shows, but The Bridge is always going to have a big room in my heart. The Bridge was so important for me personally. So I have to say I also like The Bridge more.
I felt it somehow closer to, at least to my perception of the world. Right?
Yeah. Marcella is a bit darker. It's a bit more gruesome. It's especially series 2 is not for everyone. My wife hasn't watched series 2. She just says, "Oh, you're not."
It's harder to watch.
Yeah, you're not well. She says, "You're sick. I can't watch series 2." So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Rosenfeldt.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and I hope we'll get to read and watch more.
Yeah, as I said, if things sorted out, it will be out next year.
Good luck and all the best to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.